No, sorry. Oh,
No, we're live.
We're live. All good.
Yes. Cool. So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us at our regular art tech and NFT Fuel Art webinar series. Throughout the last months, we've been talking so much, and we've heard a lot of speculations about the health of the NFT ecosystem. And it reminds me that when an investor looks at a newborn, a brand new sphere of investment like the NFT market, he's not that much interested, in fact, in the numbers of the volume of transactions. He's interested in four characteristics. One is the volume of the money deployed in the infrastructure startups. Second one is, is someone cares about industry reports. So the industry should have its industry reports like Fuel Art startup reports or NFT trade report by non-fungible. The third marker is the, let's say, the presence of institutional academic or scientific works like PhDs focused on this particular market, which NFT market already has. And the fourth, maybe the most important sign for the health, which says that the industry is healthy, is the attention of strategists towards this market. Who are the strategists? Strategists are huge companies who would like to explore the new market. And I'm happy that today we have the representative of one of the strategists, one of the large-scale galleries, top galleries on the art market, Pace Gallery, so who pointed its attention towards Web3 and NFT. So I'm happy to welcome today Ariel Hudes, the head of Pace Verso, the gallery's Web3 arm. Ariel was from the first day of, development of Pace Verso. From its inception, she was helping position Pace as the leading art gallery in the Web3 space. So Ariel has also worked closely with Pace artists, including Jeff Koons, Gerrard and Glenn Kaino. She helped them to realize their NFT projects with Pace Verso. And also important to add that Ariel led the formation of Pace Verso's celebrated partnership with Art Blocks, one of the most prominent curated NFT art marketplaces. So, and through this partnership, the two big companies together, they release generative art projects by Pace artists on the Art Blocks platform. So, hi, Ariel. Thanks for joining us today. And
Great to be here.
I'm also happy to welcome our traditional co-host, the project manager of Fuel Arts, Sonia Stubblebine. So today, together with Sonia, we're asking questions to you, Ariel, and to Pace Gallery, to Pace Verso. Traditionally, I start the conversation. So my first question gets us back to one publication on ArtNet. So according to ArtNet, Pace has been moving into the tech sector more aggressively than the other mega gallery. So my question is, what steps did the gallery take to move into tech, or what key initiatives and projects could you highlight within this scope?
Great to be here. Thank you for having me. So Pace, I think the way we always talk about how we've been successful through our 60-year history and how we will then continue to be successful going forward is that we follow the artists, and where the artists where the artists go, we take their cue and we figure out how to support them in those spaces. So we, if you think of decades ago, artists were starting to do video art. Pace figured out how to support artists making video art. You could think of as early digital art. More recently, we identified that amazing artists were doing immersive, interactive art installations that were powered by digital technology. So the best example is probably Team Lab. We did an exhibition with Team Lab in Palo Alto a number of years ago, and it was a hit. People loved it. We loved supporting them, and we saw that there wasn't an existing place in the commercial art world for artists who are making art like that, and we sort of opened our arms to Team Lab and to other artists working with tools similar to theirs. So we now represent Random International and A. Murakami and other artists who create art in that way. So that was probably our biggest, most visible step into what you're describing, being leaders on the tech side. And then getting into Web3 followed very naturally. Same principles underlying that transition. The idea that our artists, who we think of as the best artists in the world, are interested in using these tools. It's our job to figure out how to support them in using those tools. And we felt very strongly that we needed to, again, follow their lead and enter the space.
Sounds great. And when did Pace Gallery see the potential in NFT? And when was the first project? And what was the first project related to NFT?
Yeah, so we started exploring the space in early 2021. That was, if you remember, that's when there was really a frenzy that I think was initiated largely by Top Shots. Just a new mass market paying attention to NFTs and the blockchain. So that's when we started having artists come to us and they were saying, what's going on here? I'm interested. I want to make something. And that's when we said, we want to figure out how to support them in this space. And let's do an exploration of what supporting them would look like. So fast forward to November of 2021, we built between, say, March and November. We officially launched Pace Verso in November. It's hard to believe that was less than a year ago because we've done a lot since then. And really the very first project we did after launching was with Studio Drift, an amazing technology-driven, interactive, immersive collective, like I was just describing, based in Amsterdam. And they did a interactive NFT project that we had on our booth at Art Basel Miami. And it was a work where it was a sculptural work and it looked like blocks, abstract blocks on a wall. And when you held an iPad up to it, the blocks became the planets in our solar system. And you saw them in 3 dimensions. It was really AR. And there was that was sold as an NFT. So that sort of the whole thing was an NFT, but it did come with this physical component as well. That was a hit at Art Basel Miami. We had everybody coming to the booth wanting to play with the interactive feature. We sold the work and publicly, it sold for over $500,000, which for an NFT is still a really significant price. And from there, we're sort of off to the races. We've done a number of things since then, and we really have a big fall coming up. I would say we're shifting out of quiet growth mode into we're really here. We're going to have a consistent flow of projects through the fall and then going into the spring. And yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Ariel, I definitely remember last year's Art Basel Miami Beach, where the attention of the audience was spread between the specially dedicated, fully NFT Tezos Pavilion and the booth of Pace Gallery containing an NFT artwork. So yes, I can confirm that. My question is, why did Pace Gallery decide to launch its custom-built NFT platform? Not in the form of partnership from the very beginning, but custom-built. And why was it launched particularly in November 2021? Because frankly speaking, there have been a lot of speculations that time that any platform launched after the successful Beeple sale won't be accepted by the crypto community. But
okay.
You proved that,
Yeah.
when a mega gallery launches its NFT platform, it can be successful. So 2 questions in one, please.
Yeah. All right. So first question, why did we do our own platform? So early 2021, we started looking at this space. I, at the time, was sort of leading business development at large for the gallery, and it was handed off to me, like, let's explore this space, go figure out what we should maybe do. And I assumed our answer would be, we should develop a partnership with one of these existing platforms, and that's where we should funnel Pace artists. So any artist from our roster who wants to do an NFT, we'll send them through to these marketplaces, to whatever marketplace we partner with. So I spent a weekend, very memorable weekend to me, doing a really deep dive on all the big platforms. I won't name names, but all the ones people were talking about at the time. Some of them we're no longer talking about, but you can imagine, the big platforms. And what I did was I built a comparison matrix comparing them across all different technical dimensions. What currencies did they accept? Could they accept fiat currencies? How much support did they provide on custom smart contracts? All these things. And what I found is, like, some of the platforms were more technically friendly to our needs, others were less, but none had a look and feel that felt appropriate for our artists. Even the platforms I saw that technically could meet all of our needs, when I looked at what was going on the site and the context our artists would be in, I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. And it made me realize that what we need to do in Web3 as we present artists NFTs is we need to present them with the same elegance and care that we present physical art at the gallery. So if you think of our gallery spaces, if you've been to them here in New York or anywhere around the world, we present art in a really elegant, simple way. There's not a lot of, it's really the context is created to let the artwork speak. And I didn't think any of the platforms did that. So from there, we knew we needed to build our own to give our artists the right context. So your second question, why did we launch in November 2021? How can we be successful post people sale? We have been extremely careful as we've gone into this space to go in an authentic way and to really put our money where our mouth is, to say, like, we're here to stay and to be part of this community, not to have a cash grab. And I think if you look at the projects we've done and the partnerships we've done, it shows that to be true. The way we've engaged the community, the way we've invited the community into Pace Gallery, the way Pace Gallery representatives have gone into this community, we are, we do really believe this is the future, and it's an important new ecosystem for us to be, like, deeply ingrained in. And I think that resonates for everyone in what we do. And I'll say, for me, one indication of that is that the big DAOs, the collecting DAOs, who I have so much respect for in this space, really took risks early on, made good decisions early on, and continue to carry a lot of cachet. They're all really interested in what Pace Verso is doing and want to work with us and are interested in some of the projects we have coming up. And to me, that's an indication that we are perceived as authentic and part of this world.
Absolutely. And for those people who have not been in touch with Pace Verso yet, how would you explain, how does Pace Verso work?
So I call Pace Verso a hub for our Web3 activity. I actually do not call it a platform. The reason I don't call it a platform is that what we found quickly is that our artists who want to do projects in the space do not want to make art that fits into, like, a templated platform where you imagine, like, art in little boxes. That's not what Jeff Koons wants to do. That's not what other Pace artists want to do. They want to do projects that in most cases are highly customized, end-to-end customized, custom website, custom smart contract, custom marketing plan, custom community outreach. Everything is the same as we would do for an exhibition, we do for these projects. So what it turns out that Pace Verso is really like a conglomeration of projects. You come to the Verso website, it's an umbrella, really, and you're going to get, like, dropped into different projects you can look at by our artists. We are about to launch a platform that will allow some slightly more simple, slightly less customized projects to be sold in a streamlined way that makes it like faster and easier for us to push projects out. So instead of designing a custom website every single time, so we will have that. But we will continue to launch projects that really like stand on their own and just come under the Verso umbrella.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ariel. We've mentioned about your cooperation with Art Blocks, NFT platform. So could you please reveal the details of that recent partnership?
Yeah, so we're really excited about this and proud of this partnership. We started getting to know Eric Calderon Snowfro, the founder of Art Blocks, really a year and a half ago. As very early in our time in the space, we started talking to him, found that he is a real art lover, connoisseur. He really knows artists from the physical world, loves many artists Pace works with, including James Turrell, who I think he said is his favorite artist. So we had these great conversations with Eric about art. And in this space, as you know, even many people who are working with art in name, they're working with NFTs that are called art, are not actually talking about capital A art and not really engaged in the art work. They're engaged in the commercial activity that art is sort of like the vehicle for that. Eric was not like that. Eric really wanted to talk about the art. So we loved him from the get-go. And we really believed in what Art Blocks was doing and the quality of the work that they were releasing. So we continued talking for a long time, getting to know him. We had, in early 2022, one of our artists, Leo Villarreal, who's an artist who has always worked in a digital medium, did an Art Blocks project. We took works from that project after they were minted and we put them on our booth at Freeze LA, a big art fair. And Eric and Jeff, who's his CCO at Art Blocks, came out to LA. They saw the NFTs on the booth and they spent some time with Pace and we introduced them to people in the Pace community. A couple months later, we went out to Marfa when they actually did an exhibition of Leo Villarreal's work at their gallery in Marfa. And we just kept coming back to like, we're really simpatico. Like we're from two different worlds, but we're thinking about art in the same way. And we each have a lot to learn from the other's community. They loved seeing Art Blocks work on view in a true art world setting, like this art fair. We loved going to Marfa and meeting the community, like the true deep Web3 community. And it just felt like we each had so much to gain from the other. So we decided to do our partnership, Art Blocks X Pace Verso. And the partnership is twofold. The cornerstone of it is we will release a series of projects on Art Blocks by Pace artists. The first one happened in June. It was by Gerrard. Went really well. We actually just yesterday announced the second one, which is by this interactive collective from Japan called AA Murakami. So that's coming, it's a TBD date, but coming in early fall. And we have a couple more lined up for later in the fall. I'm very excited. We have a couple artists who are physical artists, like purely physical. We have a painter and a sculptor who are using the Art Blocks generative tools to kind of like crack open their practice and allow them to look at like a much wider range of variations than they could ever make with a paintbrush, which is, what generative art allows you to do. So that's the first part. The second part is just cross-community collaborations and opportunities for each community to meet the other. So small examples, in Austin during Consensus, we held a big happy hour for the Art Blocks community. In Basel, during Art Basel, Switzerland, we held a celebration for Jean Gerard's project and invited both communities. More recently, we did a talk at Pace with our CEO, Mark Glimsher, and Eric Calderon, and we invited both communities and live streamed that. So like finding many opportunities to get to know each other and sort of bring the two communities together.
Great. I mean, we also know Eric personally, and we were looking him to be one of the guests of for the upcoming webinars. We're currently talking about it.
Great. He's
So
great.
yeah, I'm very happy with your collaboration. We have one question. I mean, there should be more from the audience.
Okay.
Thank you, Ariel. How can digital? Yes, yeah. This question should have risen sooner or later. How can digital artists enter Pace Verso? Is it easier for creators on digital than classic art world? Yes, because when a traditional artist wants to, let's say, be signed by a top gallery, he should prove his concept in so-called farm galleries, and let's say start from the low-sized galleries and middle-sized, and prove that he can work with in terms of the contract, and he is loved by collectors. He has his own audience, and then by chance he can become a part of a large-scale gallery. But what about digital artists? So have the rules changed because of the decentralization and transborderness? So how can a digital, sorry for making this question so long, but yeah, I would be happy to ask that as well.
Yeah. So far, Pace Verso has only done projects by Pace Gallery artists. So we haven't done any projects by traditional artists who are not from Pace or by native Web3 artists. I think both of those things will happen eventually. And honestly, Dennis, what you laid out is maybe the somewhat traditional path, but everything we do is case by case, everything we do, because we're working with artists. We're not doing, this is not like a corporation that's manufacturing things, or we put in place a process and just run it through every time. Everything is custom. So if there were an artist who we really were super excited about and was native to Web3 and wanted to work with, there's no reason they have to go through other steps or stages before we could work with them directly. We just haven't done that yet, but I do think it's coming.
I'm so happy to hear that, because just one small addition, the pandemic, for instance, showed that the traditional, let's say, relationship between gallery and artists, could be re-estimated. And, we had a lot of examples where top galleries, they, during pandemic, found brilliant artists in the emerging countries and brought them on the top of the art market. Sonia?
Right. I have another question for you. I was curious, what was the reaction? What kind of feedback did you get from collectors and artists? What did they tell you about Pace Verso?
We've had so many different reactions. I think it's interesting on the artist side. Not surprisingly, artists are really open. I think most artists are really curious and open. And any artist I've gone to say, let's talk about something, pretty much every single one has said, okay, let's hear about it. Let's talk about it. That doesn't mean everybody decides to move forward with a project, but there is this innate curiosity in artists that I think has made them really good audience for this. And some of the people who have ultimately decided to do projects are probably not the people I would have assumed would, or that from the outside people would assume would. Like I said, we have a sculptor coming up on Art Blocks. We have a painter coming up on Art Blocks, and they're doing the most amazing things with those tools. So artists are interested. Collectors are a mixed bag, but I think you largely two sets. You have a set that just says I'm not interested, and that's fine. That is completely fine. We're not trying to convince we're really actually not trying to convince anybody. And then you have people who are interested and want to learn and maybe want to dabble. And basically what we're seeing is over time, this group gets smaller because people migrate into this group, and eventually everyone will be interested. That is my belief, is that eventually everyone will be interested. More broadly, the audience that I think has been the most skeptical, interestingly, is the larger art world and art establishment, sort of our peers and competitors. I'm sitting in Chelsea, so all around us in Chelsea. They've really decided not to enter the space, and some of them have been very direct about not wanting to enter the space and not respecting the space. And we have that certainly does not make us waver in our convictions. We feel like very strongly that now is the time. If anything, we're behind. We'd like to be even further along, and that they will all be here eventually. We'll have a head start. And I think having made some of those statements might make it hard to build the authenticity that we've worked really hard to build in this space, so that the community sees us as wanting to learn from them and not wanting to come in some sort of hierarchical way. So that's where there's been the most skepticism, but I know that will shift.
That's very interesting. Why do you think it is actually? Why do you think they don't want to enter the space? Like, what's their thoughts?
I think there's two reasons. I think there's one very practical reason, which is Pace. Like I was saying, when we started thinking about this space, we already had a little business development team of people. I have an MBA and my colleagues have MBAs, and I've spent time at a consulting firm, and we have, a team of people who have this background, who are in the art world, but have backgrounds in more traditional business. So we were like armed and ready to explore a space like this and build a new business. If your team is only sales dealers, you don't really have the right team to go, like, if I think of everything I've done in the last year and a half, explore partnerships, negotiate the contracts, put these things in place. It's really like not the, I'm sure a smart sales dealer could do it, but they're busy selling art. That's their job. If you don't have a team that's ready to do it, that makes it really hard. So that's one. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I think the art world has always been scared of change. And if you look at the way the art world reacted to any past movement, photography, video art, pop art, Warhol, Basquiat, these are all parts of the art canon that we take for granted now, that when they first came out, were not totally smiled upon by the establishment. So I think it's very expected that many galleries would be slow to adopt.
Thank you, Ariel. As soon as we've started talking about collectors, it's natural to ask you the following question. I mean, what exact knowledge and skills from working with traditional collectors have you transferred to dealing with crypto collectors? Saying you, I mean both you or Pace / Pace Verso.
Yeah. So really interesting question, because I think it translates 100% from the one world into the other, which is that our specialty at Pace is working one-on-one with a collector to understand what their interests are, help them find art that delivers on those interests. And then on the other hand, we're working with the artists and helping them produce their work. That's exactly what we're doing for collectors in this Web3 space as well. When I think about how I'm talking to these major DAOs, it's just like talking to a collector. It's understanding what are they interested in, how are they building their collection, what do we have coming up that could be a fit, keeping them in mind as other things come up, building a really deep, robust relationship. So it's very similar.
Interesting. I also want to ask you, because Pace Verso is now not even 1 year, but what kind of ideas do you have for the future? Where would you like to see Pace Verso in 2 or 5 years?
Yeah, great question. So I would like to have either in-house or externally really top technical capabilities, so that when our artists or any artist comes to us with a project they want to do, we're able to produce it at a very high level, which we are doing right now. But because we do each project custom the way I described, every time an artist comes to us with a project, we source a custom technical team for them. So we go out and find the right people to engineer it, the right people to do whatever needs to be done for that project, to write the smart contract, etc. Having technical capabilities in-house, flexible technical capabilities, or really strong partnerships externally would allow us to just be more nimble and take on more projects. So really, I mean, the biggest thing for growth for 2 or 5 years is to do more of what we are doing. We'll launch in, say, the next we'll launch at this point in the fall. We'll have probably 2 or 3 art blocks projects and 2 or 3 other big projects. I'd love to be able to pick up that cadence and have 1 or 2 projects a month. And I would really love, the indicator to me of success will be that collectors from this space are coming to Pace Verso to see what we're doing and getting interested. Not that they're like getting excited about a project and through that project they meet Pace Verso. I want them to be coming to us. They're so excited about Verso as a brand and what we do and the quality of the work that we produce and sell. They're constantly checking back in and interested in everything we're doing. So really, like, the goal is to be in Web3 what we are as Pace in the physical art world. And that to me means we're an authority. People respect our opinion. Collectors do, museums do, artists do. They come to us for input. They want to work with us. They trust our expertise. We, are seen as like presenting art in the most elegant, elevated way. All of those things that like are so natural and obvious for the physical gallery. I'm pointing to it across the street. We want all of that to be the case for Pace Verso as well.
That sounds big and amazing.
We have mentioned the term Web3 for several times, and it's obvious that, let's say, as NFT was the keyword of 2021, and Meta was the keyword of, let's say, October/March previous year and this year, and now we're all into Web3. It just reminded me that as soon as we are, at Fuel Arts now working on the second edition of our startup investment report. The report which combines all the, assembles all the financial information regarding the investments in the art tech and NFT ecosystem. It just reminded me that currently we're working with Sonia and the rest of the team on the special glossary, because we understood the world is missed in so many terms. Okay, metaverse, our metaverse. What's the relation of metaverse and NFTs?
Yeah.
Metaverse can be traded as NFTs, and what is Web3? So the art world has just been used to the term art plus tech, art and tech, thanks to Christie's, because the name of the conference, which lasts for 5 years in a row, it's Art and Tech Summit. So, but what is Web3? Is art tech a part of Web3? More or less, probably yes. And why everyone uses that? So, sorry for that addition. That's not a question. That's our big pain, which we'd like to resolve for the sake of the art world, because you can't imagine. The situation where the most awful situation is where everyone is missed in terms, which means that everyone is misled.
Yeah, no, I think there's a real barrier to getting involved right now that's as simple as what you're saying, terms. I think people feel so intimidated by terms that they don't know, that they just don't want to get into the space at all. And if you can lower that barrier, then I think more people would be exploring.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And from the Web3, let's move to the current situation, to the current bear market trend. We both were at the recent Christie's Art and Tech Summit, and a lot of questions were about what's next. What's the market reaction to the bear market? Because everyone wanted to hear some kind of relief, and people really received the relief in, let's say, in terms of the answers of the respectful speakers, and you as well. You've been speaking there. I really enjoyed your speech at the panel. So my question will be regarding the bear market. So how do you assess the current let's say, recession in crypto space and its impact on NFT art in particular? And what will be your personal forecast until the end of 2022, let's say, in short perspective, 6 months?
Sure. So from the perspective of Pace Verso, well, first of all, let me say there's two separate things. There's the crypto market coming down, and then there's what happened in the NFT market. And of course, those things happen in parallel with each other, but they really are two different things. The change in the NFT market, the sort of bubble popping in NFTs in May-ish, truly, I think for Pace Verso is like the best thing that could have happened. Because what I see is that the interest in NFTs that are art in name only, they're really just, like I was saying earlier, like the art is just a vehicle for like basically speculative trading, and it's not really about the art at all. It's just about flipping things. That's the bubble that popped. And the interest in that type of NFT definitely like dropped, if not went away. And, you know, good luck if you're trying to launch a project like that right now. I don't think that's going to work very well. And what's good for Pace Verso about that is I think what replaced that interest is interest in buying art, capital A art, that holds its value. And Pace as a brand, that's exactly what we do. That is what we have always done. We work with artists who have had long careers and have long careers ahead of them. We put our brand behind them because we believe that they will continue to make extremely valuable, important art. We work with them to support that. If a collector is looking to do that, to buy something that will hold its value, we really are kind of the source in this space for that. So I think it gives us a platform to sell things at a higher price, which is more, you know, a lot of our artists do want to do smaller series or collect like small collections of one-of-ones that do just, it feels more like you're buying an artwork than you're buying something to flip and trade. And now there's renewed interest in that, I think. So for us, you know, I think this is our moment. And some of the projects, in fact, we'll be announcing a project next week that is a small collection of one-of-ones by a really notable artist. And I think that project will be a test case in what I'm saying. And I think it will go well. What do I think is gonna happen the rest of the year? I mean, I think it's all wrapped up in the merge and what happens with Ethereum. I feel too uneducated to make, you know, I'm relatively educated in the space, but not so deep on the finance side to make a really smart prediction. But I think probably leading up to September 19th, there will be some news that it'll be delayed, and then Ethereum will crash. And then like they'll announce some future date that it's going to happen like in November, and leading up to that date, it'll come back up. And then maybe it'll happen. And then I think if it happens and it goes well, then I think really what I think will happen is that then new users start flowing in, and that's what really starts building the value. Again, is that the press and visibility around the merge, and it, you know, hopefully going well, will draw in a lot of new users, and this point of the environmental concerns will go away, and hopefully we'll have some new wallets coming to market that make it much easier to just get on board and dip a toe in. And I think all of that will draw people in, and that will help with both the crypto market and the NFT market.
Thank you. That sounded very enthusiastic and professional at the same time. So it's a very rare combination.
Then we have another question from the audience. Should we read this one? Yeah. So a question from Streaming Museum, John Gerrard is donated 25% of proceeds to atmospheric CO2 removal, generative farming organizations. Is alignment with various causes a factor in motivating collectors to purchase?
Really interesting. I haven't thought about that, but I think it's kind of the inverse. I think donating is motivating artists to do projects. I'm not sure it's moving the needle for collectors, but definitely for artists, it's something that gets them really excited, particularly on art blocks where, you know, in general, 25% of the proceeds of every project are donated. and some of the projects we have coming up on Art Blocks this fall, the artists are really interested in where they're going to donate. I'm very excited they're going to be able to make these donations. So yeah, I think it's more coming from the artists than the collectors.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, if we look at the public market, I mean, the auction market, traditionally, as the statistics says, beneficiary auctions or auctions which have a name to donate something, they show best results in terms of the middle prices of particular artists. That's why art analysts and art economists never take the results of the beneficiary auctions into consideration when creating the evaluation of the artistic career. So, yeah.
Interesting.
We have several more questions, but before that, let us ask our, let's say, last question, Sonia.
Yeah, so I feel it's a very interesting question and a very genuine one as well. What do you think needs to be done to kind of narrow the gap between like digital art and traditional art? And also, same for the collectors. What needs to be done to kind of narrow this gap between collectors of traditional art and digital art?
On the first part of the question for artists, can you just say more of what you mean by narrow the gap?
Well, I mean, there are so many artists who want to go to NFT space, but they don't go. And same thing, I heard that NFT artists, they want to go into traditional art. Some of them don't, some of they do successfully or unsuccessfully. But I still feel there are many traditional artists who are kind of afraid of this space. So what needs to be done to kind of make it more open for them?
Good question. I can say what we're doing, but this is not a scalable solution. But what we do is, we work with about 100 artists and estates, and of that group of artists, any of them who is interested comes to us, and I sit with them one-on-one. And I did this just yesterday with a painter, and she didn't have any projects in mind. We weren't talking about any specific projects for her, but I was teaching her about the space. We spent an hour just talking about what is an NFT? What does minting mean? What are some examples of different projects that have been done? And now she's going to go away and think, and I won't be surprised at all if I hear from her in a couple of weeks and she says, you know what, I have an idea. There's something I want to do. And she won't probably know what technical team to use or how to mint it or the specifics of the smart contract, but our team will facilitate a development process for her where all those questions will get answered. So it's a very like one-on-one process, not scalable. For the larger art community who doesn't have, is not like a Pace artist to get involved, I think, like I was just saying, as just more people get onto Web3 in general and more tools become accessible to make Web3, to make the barriers to entry lower, artists will start figuring things out for themselves. Artists are really, really good at that. But right now, like artists, like it's so hard to just get a wallet and start playing around in the space that they're probably not putting their attention on it. But once that's a little bit easier, once there's more people around them doing it, once there's no more environmental concerns around Ethereum, then artists will play with the tools and they'll get smart and they'll very quickly start teaching us like what's possible in this space, and what it means, what's the breadth of ways physical artists can transition to working in digital mediums. And I would fully expect that in the next, year or two. Oh, and you said for collectors. Yeah. I mean, we're very interested in both directions. How do you, physical art, collectors who have traditionally collected physical art, how do you get them interested in NFTs? And actually, I'm more interested in the other direction. How do you get somebody who's come to art through NFTs to then be interested in building a physical collection? And it's funny, the issue is the same on both sides. It's the intimidation factor. People from the Web3 world are very intimidated about talking about entering traditional art establishment spaces and having conversations in those spaces. And on the flip side, collectors from the traditional world are, like we were saying earlier, they feel like they don't know the terms. They don't even know where to begin. They don't know how to ask the questions. They're curious, but they don't know where to start. So what we're trying to do is, like I was saying with the events we're doing with Art Blocks, we're looking for every opportunity we can to break down those barriers, particularly for the Web3 native clients. We're saying, like, our doors are open to you. Like, come to us, come to an event, come meet us, come look at art, come talk about art, come tell us what you're interested in. Come let us show you some other things we think you might be interested in. Come let us talk to you about building a collection. Our doors are open. So we are trying to do that. We are doing that by for particular individuals, like inviting them in one-on-one or through small events. For the larger community, inviting them in through bigger events. On our Discord, on the Pace Verso Discord, we post about every single opening we have globally and invite everybody to those openings and hope they come. And then on the other side, because there aren't great tools right now, like user-friendly wallets for a traditional collector to ramp up in the space, we are doing a lot of hand-holding through the purchasing process, through the wallet setup process, just doing everything we can to make it easy for someone to kind of like make their first purchase and get into the space and get excited, because we think it just takes off itself from there. So we spend a lot of time and like put a lot of energy into each relationship there.
Thank you, Ariel. We have 2 more questions from the audience, and we still have time. So let's. From according to the name, this is a Ukrainian artist. So Ariel, thanks. How can you distinguish the art pieces that keep in their value from the others?
Great question. The first thing I would say is look at the artist who made it. So very, very rare that you have an individual art piece that with no context and the artist not having other pieces of long-term value, just that one single piece takes off and is valuable forever. I can't think of any examples. Usually you have an artist who is creating value across their body of work because they are continuing to make work of value. They are continuing to be engaged with museums and critics. And that's, that would be the biggest thing. You can look then at the artist and what gallery do they work with and what museums have shown and acquired their work. How do they talk about it? Do they talk about it? I think this is a big one when you're looking at different like native Web3 artists. Do they talk about art, or do they talk about art like something to make money off of, or like a collectible? Those things are great. Like collectibles are great. It's just a little different than a piece of art that's meant to sort of stand on its own in terms of holding value. So yeah, that's what I would look at.
Thank you. And the last question so far. Oh yes, that's that's a nice question. With a lot of accelerators raising. I believe the question was with a lot of acceleration raising general startups nowadays. Have you ever considered creating an accelerator dedicated to artists' careers? One small addition. From 3 applications we receive, let's say, at Fuel Arts, 2 of them are from artists. So, and we reply to them, we don't have an acceleration program yet for let's say developing, for accelerating artistic careers, but they're still asking. Maybe you already have it, because the artistic career, especially in the digital sphere, starting from 2020, the expansion of NFTs can be considered as the career itself, as it should be considered like a startup, because it has its own rules. And as soon as a lot of artists they add gamification into their let's say series of artworks, they starting gamifying their own careers. Sorry again for my addition, but this question also means a lot to me. But it is addressed to you, Ariel.
So at Pace, we're a little bit traditional, I think, in how we think about an artist role. And an artist role is to make art and be a creator. And Pace exists to do the other stuff so that artists don't have to market, to build audience, to find collectors. I guess personally, it's a chicken and egg problem, because as an artist, if you're not a good marketer and business person, how do you ever get to a place like Pace who can then take those things off of your plate? But I don't see us, we're not in the business of teaching artists to do those things. We want artists to be artists, and we want to help them then do those things. So I could definitely see us, in theory, working with more of an emerging artist and giving them those tools through our engine, but probably not teaching artists to be business people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sonia, I believe today we had a wonderful discussion, a very friendly and very professional one.
Very insightful. Thank you so much for coming today, and I appreciate your time, and it's been very insightful and very interesting.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yes, and we're looking forward to welcome you as well as the, let's say, guest in our Fuel Art Startups report, which is subject to be released this fall. So thank you for giving us another interview there.
My pleasure.
Disclose one of the case studies.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ariel. So see you, and the rest of the audience, thanks for being with us. See you in a week.
See you.
Thank you.